The whistle echoed sharply across Lincoln High School's gymnasium, reverberating off walls decorated with banners of past victories and glory days. Marcus Taylor stood courtside, his piercing eyes watching his team intensely as they sprinted through drills. At 42, Marcus was still athletically built, his dark skin gleaming with sweat beneath the fluorescent lights. His presence was always felt, commanding, passionate, and sometimes controversially emotional. "Move it, Johnson!" he roared, frustration evident as he watched Tyler Johnson sluggishly jog the final lap. Tyler grimaced, pushing harder under his coach's scrutiny. Parents and school officials occasionally lingered during practice sessions, murmuring criticisms about Marcus's intensity, but they couldn't deny results. Lincoln High had never seen basketball success like Marcus had brought them over the past 5 years. Yet whispers persisted, some fueled by discomfort, some by envy. Marcus ignored the sideline glances, focusing only on molding champions. Basketball wasn't just a sport, it was a lifeline, especially in the neighborhood where Marcus grew up. Each kid on his team had a story of struggle, resilience, and unspoken fears. He knew their potential and what was required to harness it. "Come here," Marcus called as the team gathered in a circle around him. He paused, his voice softer but still intense, eyes scanning their faces. "Tomorrow's match against Eastside Prep isn't just another game. It's proof. Proof to everyone who doubts you, who doubts us, that we're meant to be here. Understand?" "Yes, coach," they replied, voices firm, though Marcus noted a slight hesitation in Tyler's eyes. After practice, Marcus stood alone, gathering equipment. The gym doors squeaked open, and Principal Diane Hartman stepped inside, her heels clicking sharply. Marcus straightened up, sensing the tension she carried. "Marcus," Diane began cautiously, "we need to talk." Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, sensing the gravity. Diane had always been fair, supportive, yet bound by the politics of school administration. "About what, Diane?" Marcus asked, maintaining composure. "There have been complaints," Diane sighed, clearly uncomfortable. "Parents are worried about your approach. They feel you're overly emotional, too intense." Marcus chuckled bitterly. "Intensity makes winners, Diane. You know that." "I do," Diane admitted. "But the board sees it differently. Some are suggesting a new direction." Marcus felt a wave of anger rising. This wasn't the first time his passion was questioned, but now it felt personal. "A new direction? What exactly does that mean?" Diane looked away briefly, her voice softening. "It means the board wants you to resign, Marcus." Marcus felt as if the air had been sucked from the gym. "Resign? Are they serious?" She nodded solemnly. "They voted this morning. They think it's best for everyone involved." Marcus's jaw tightened. "And you? Do you agree with them?" Diane hesitated. "My hands are tied." Marcus nodded slowly, understanding clearly what she left unsaid. The politics, the implicit racial undertones. They'd been there all along. He knew it wasn't only his coaching style under scrutiny. It was deeper, uglier. "I see," Marcus finally replied, controlling his emotions. "Tell the kids yourself then. Tomorrow before the game." Diane opened her mouth as if to protest, but Marcus raised a hand. "They deserve to hear it from you, not from whispers and rumors." He walked past her without another word, the heavy gym doors slamming shut behind him. Marcus stepped outside, taking deep breaths of cool evening air, rage mixing with disbelief. 5 years of victories, hard-fought games, mentoring kids forgotten by society. And this was how they repaid him. He drove home through familiar streets, past neighborhoods scarred by neglect yet vibrant with resilience. His phone buzzed. Messages from players flooded the screen, excited about tomorrow's game. Marcus's heart clenched, knowing he wouldn't be there to lead them. At home, silence greeted him. His apartment felt emptier than ever, walls adorned with team photos, trophies glinting mockingly in the dim light. He poured himself a drink, staring out into the dark cityscape. He knew this wasn't the end, just a brutal turning point. The next morning, Marcus watched from a distance as Diane addressed his team. From afar, their shocked faces spoke louder than words. Tyler looked stunned, shoulders slumped in disbelief. Jamal, team captain, visibly angry, exchanged sharp words with Diane. Marcus felt pride in Jamal's reaction, protective, strong-willed. After Diane left, Marcus approached slowly. The boys gathered around him immediately, eyes wide with confusion, betrayal evident. Coach, this isn't fair, Jamal protested fiercely. You can't go. We won't play without you. Marcus shook his head calmly. You have to. Show them they're wrong by winning. But coach, Tyler started hesitantly, eyes damp with frustration and sadness. Marcus interrupted gently but firmly. Listen, this fight isn't yours, boys. Your fight is out there on the court. That's where you'll prove yourselves. I'll be fine. They weren't convinced, but Marcus managed to refocus them. Remember everything I've taught you. Passion wins games, but discipline wins championships. Make me proud. Reluctantly, they dispersed to prepare, leaving Marcus feeling hollow yet resolute. Watching them board the bus later was painful, yet he stood firm, waving goodbye. At Eastside Prep, Marcus sat anonymously in the stands, hood up, observing silently as his team took the floor. They were hesitant at first, scattered, emotionally shaken. By halftime, they trailed significantly. He watched the sideline where his assistant, Peter Morales, now took charge. Calmer, more restrained, but unable to ignite the fire Marcus usually brought. Marcus clenched his fists, frustration boiling. His players deserved better, but something changed after halftime. Jamal stood at center court, rallying teammates fiercely. Marcus couldn't hear the words, but saw intensity returning. Tyler stepped up, driven by internal fire. They played with renewed determination, as if Marcus's spirit was guiding them invisibly. Marcus leaned forward, heart racing. The final minutes were intense, every basket critical. Tyler hit a crucial three-pointer, narrowing the deficit. With seconds remaining, Jamal intercepted a pass, racing down court, scoring just as the buzzer screamed victory. Lincoln High erupted in celebration, players embracing wildly. Marcus smiled proudly, tears burning his eyes discreetly. But reality stung. He wasn't part of this moment, excluded by prejudice masked as concern for emotional intensity. As he slipped unnoticed from the gym, Marcus resolved this wasn't over. He'd fight, for himself, his team, and every person unjustly judged for their passion. His dismissal was merely a beginning. Unseen behind him, however, sat Brian Ellis, wealthy booster, influential board member, and the quiet orchestrator of Marcus's downfall. Brian watched Marcus depart, satisfied yet wary. His personal vendetta against Marcus was well hidden, masked as concern for the team's welfare. But beneath lay secrets, envy, resentment, and hidden rivalries Marcus hadn't even begun to suspect. Marcus's dismissal wasn't accidental, it was intentional. And the true battle, he was soon to realize, was far more sinister than anyone imagined. Lincoln High's victory over Eastside Prep resonated loudly through the community, sparking conversations throughout the small town of Chesterfield. Despite the jubilance, an uneasy tension lingered. Coach Marcus Taylor's unexpected dismissal overshadowed the team's success, becoming the dominant topic in diners, grocery aisles, and local news outlets. Early Saturday morning, Marcus sat alone at his usual table in Claire's Cafe, a small diner on Chesterfield Avenue. The aroma of fresh coffee and bacon did little to soothe his troubled thoughts. Newspapers scattered before him detailed Lincoln High's improbable comeback, their headlines bittersweet reminders of his absence. "Mind some company?" came a familiar voice. Marcus glanced up to see Elijah Cooper sliding into the opposite seat. Elijah, his oldest friend and former teammate at Hampton University, wore concern plainly in his dark eyes. "Be my guest," Marcus replied, half-heartedly sipping his coffee. "Look, Marcus," Elijah began cautiously. "I heard about the board's decision. You okay?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "Do I look okay? 5 years, Eli. 5 years turning that team around, and this is what I get? Tossed aside because I dared push these kids?" Elijah sighed, leaning forward slightly, voice lowered. "Listen, there's something else going on here. I've heard some whispers around town. It might not just be about your coaching." Marcus's gaze sharpened instantly. "What do you mean?" Elijah hesitated briefly, then continued. "Brian Ellis, you know him?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Big shot booster, board member, always hovering around the gym, pretending to support the team." Elijah's expression darkened. "Marcus, Brian's been pushing for your removal for months, quietly, behind closed doors. Some say he has personal reasons." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Personal reasons? I barely know the guy. We've exchanged maybe 10 words." "Yeah, but his son, Jackson Ellis, plays for Riverton Academy, your main rival. Rumor is, Brian hates how much attention Lincoln High's success has drawn away from Riverton, and especially away from Jackson. It's jealousy, Marcus. Pure and simple. Marcus felt anger twist sharply inside him. So my players suffer because of one rich guy's insecurity? Unbelievable. Elijah nodded gravely. Exactly. But Brian's powerful. He has money, influence, connections. Diane and the rest of the school board are practically his puppets. If he wants you gone, you're gone. Marcus sighed heavily, leaning back, absorbing the weight of Elijah's words. It wasn't a revelation as much as confirmation of his suspicions. His dismissal had never truly been about emotional methods. It was far more insidious, driven by ego, rivalry, and privilege. Elijah broke the tense silence. What are you going to do? Marcus considered the question carefully. Honestly, I don't know yet. I have to think it through, but I'm not backing down without a fight. Elijah smiled warmly, nodding approvingly. I expected nothing less. Meanwhile, across town, Jamal Stevens stood at Lincoln High's outdoor basketball court, dribbling quietly, lost in thought. Jamal, the team's captain and leading scorer, felt Marcus's dismissal deeper than most. Marcus had become more than a coach. He was a mentor, a father figure Jamal never had. You all right, Jamal? Tyler Johnson approached hesitantly, his voice cautious, sensing Jamal's agitation. Jamal shook his head, eyes fixed on the worn pavement. This isn't right, Tyler. Coach Marcus deserved better. Tyler sighed. Yeah, but what can we do? They already fired him. Jamal abruptly stopped dribbling, catching the ball fiercely. We fight back. Make them realize they made a mistake. Win the championship without him. Show everyone it's Coach Marcus's coaching that made us champions. Tyler looked uncertain. But without him, can we really do it? We have to, Jamal insisted fiercely, eyes blazing with determination. For Coach. Their conversation was interrupted by a sleek black SUV pulling up beside the court. Brian Ellis stepped out, casually adjusting his expensive sunglasses, his polished leather shoes sharply contrasting the cracked asphalt. Hello, boys, Brian greeted smoothly, offering a calculated smile. Jamal immediately bristled, wary of the man whose name had begun circulating suspiciously among the team. What do you want, Mr. Ellis? Jamal asked coldly. Brian feigned surprise. Just checking on you boys. Heard about your big win. Congratulations. It's impressive, especially without Marcus yelling from the sidelines. Jamal tensed visibly, sensing a veiled insult. Coach Marcus taught us everything we know. We won because of him, not despite him. Brian's smile stiffened. Of course. Marcus is a passionate coach. Perhaps too passionate. The school board simply decided it's best for everyone to move on. You'll see. Jamal stepped forward defiantly. Is that what happened? Or did someone convince them to get rid of him? Brian's eyes narrowed briefly, betraying surprise at Jamal's boldness, quickly masked by a calm expression. Careful, Jamal. Accusations without proof are dangerous. I'd advise you boys to focus on basketball. Politics are best left to adults. Tyler glanced uneasily between Jamal and Brian, sensing the tension mounting dangerously. We'll keep that in mind. He intervened diplomatically, pulling Jamal gently backward. Brian nodded coolly, turning toward his vehicle. Good luck, boys. See you around. Jamal watched Brian's SUV drive away, anger burning deeper. I don't trust him, Tyler. He's behind Coach Marcus's firing, I know it. Tyler nodded grimly, understanding Jamal's conviction. If that's true, we need proof. But where do we start? Jamal's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. His son, Jackson. Maybe he knows something. That evening, Marcus sat quietly in his apartment, going over plays absent-mindedly, when a knock startled him. He opened the door to find Jamal standing determinedly at his doorstep. Coach, we need to talk, Jamal declared firmly, not waiting for an invitation before stepping inside. Marcus watched, mildly amused yet curious. Come on in, Jamal. Something wrong? Jamal took a deep breath, gathering courage. Coach, this whole situation feels wrong. Brian Ellis visited us today. He practically gloated about your firing. He's hiding something. Marcus frowned, unsettled but unsurprised. Be careful, Jamal. Brian Ellis isn't someone to cross lightly. Jamal nodded stubbornly. I know, but someone has to stand up. Tyler and I are planning something. We're going to talk to Jackson, see what he knows. Marcus hesitated. Jamal, listen. Don't risk your own reputation for me. It's not just for you, Coach, Jamal interrupted firmly. It's for all of us. Without you, we're just another team. With you, we're something special. We owe it to you to fight." Marcus felt a swell of pride, tempered by protective instinct. "Just promise me you'll be careful. Ellis can make life difficult." Jamal smiled confidently. "We're tough, coach. You taught us that." After Jamal left, Marcus reflected deeply. His students' loyalty moved him profoundly, but their safety concerned him greatly. Yet he knew, deep down, Jamal's spirit mirrored his own stubborn determination. He wouldn't back down. Neither would Marcus. In the quiet luxury of his home, Brian Ellis watched security footage of Jamal confronting him earlier at the basketball court. His jaw tightened, fury simmering beneath his polished exterior. Marcus Taylor was meant to disappear quietly, yet his influence remained stubbornly powerful. "Dad?" Jackson entered hesitantly. Brian quickly minimized the video, turning toward his son with a forced smile. "Yes, Jackson?" Jackson eyed him suspiciously. "Was that about Coach Marcus? Are you behind this?" Brian's gaze hardened momentarily before relaxing. "I did what needed to be done. You'll thank me later." Jackson looked uneasy, voice quieter now. "Dad, Lincoln High won yesterday without Marcus. Isn't that proof he was a good coach?" Brian's eyes flashed dangerously. "Careful, Jackson. Don't let loyalty to your rivals cloud your judgment." Jackson fell silent, backing away slowly, sensing his father's volatile mood. Something wasn't right. He knew more than he was willing to admit, but he feared his father's reaction far more. The seeds of doubt had been sown, both at Lincoln High and Riverton Academy, and soon, Marcus's dismissal would unravel secrets far deeper and darker than anyone anticipated. Jackson Ellis sat quietly in the dimly lit locker room of Riverton Academy. The distant hum of janitorial equipment echoed faintly through the empty corridors, blending into the rhythmic dripping of a leaky shower faucet. Normally, Jackson would have been home hours ago, but tonight he lingered, deep in thought, haunted by the strained conversation he'd shared earlier with his father. Jackson had grown up under the shadow of Brian Ellis's towering expectations. Wealthy, influential, ambitious, his father was determined to see his son crowned a basketball star. Yet Jackson's passion for the game had always been tempered by discomfort with his father's ruthless pursuit of success. Today, something inside him had shifted, a realization he could no longer ignore. The locker room door creaked open suddenly, breaking Jackson's reverie. Startled, he turned quickly to see Jamal Stevens and Tyler Johnson standing hesitantly at the entrance, their expressions cautious yet determined. "What are you guys doing here?" Jackson asked, immediately defensive, suspicion tightening his voice. Jamal stepped forward calmly, hands raised slightly to show no hostility. "We just want to talk, Jackson. 5 minutes, that's all." Jackson hesitated, but nodded slowly. "Okay, 5 minutes." Tyler glanced at Jamal, prompting him silently. Jamal took a breath, gathering courage. "Jackson, we know this is awkward. Our teams are rivals. But this isn't about basketball right now. It's about Coach Marcus." Jackson stiffened slightly, eyes wary yet intrigued. "What about him?" "Your dad," Jamal continued carefully, watching Jackson's reaction closely. "He visited us earlier today. It was strange, almost like he was rubbing it in our faces that Coach Marcus was fired. We think your dad's behind the decision." Jackson sighed deeply, his shoulders slumping slightly, clearly conflicted. "Honestly, Jamal, I don't know exactly what he's done, but I wouldn't be surprised. He's been obsessed with Lincoln High ever since Coach Marcus took your team to state championships. My dad hates being overshadowed." Tyler moved closer, sensing Jackson's discomfort. "Look, man, Coach Marcus didn't deserve this. You know that as well as we do. If your dad orchestrated this, it's wrong." Jackson stared at the floor, troubled. After a long silence, he finally spoke, voice quiet yet firm. "Look, I want to help. I overheard something. My dad was talking with Principal Hartman on the phone. He mentioned some kind of deal, something about donations to the school if Marcus was gone." Jamal's eyes narrowed fiercely. "Are you serious?" Jackson nodded solemnly. "Yeah, my dad uses money as leverage all the time. He donates a lot to Lincoln High, mostly to keep influence. He was angry that Marcus kept getting the spotlight. It was personal." Tyler sighed, frustrated. "But we need proof, Jackson. Without it, no one will listen." Jackson hesitated again, clearly conflicted. "There's something else. My dad keeps everything. Emails, voice recordings, he's meticulous. If there's proof, it'll be at his home office. Jamal and Tyler exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their faces. Breaking into Brian Ellis's private files was a risk neither had fully considered. Tyler voiced their concern. That's serious, Jackson. If we get caught, it's bad news. Jackson met their eyes determinedly. I'll do it. It's my dad, my responsibility. I need to make this right. Jamal nodded approvingly. Be careful, man. We're counting on you. Later that night, Marcus Taylor paced restlessly in his apartment. The revelations from Jamal weighed heavily upon him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was caught in something much larger and uglier than he had ever anticipated. He'd always sensed resistance from certain board members, particularly Brian Ellis, but never imagined the depth of resentment that now seemed apparent. Marcus's phone buzzed suddenly, pulling him from his troubled thoughts. The caller ID flashed Elijah Cooper. Hey, Eli, Marcus answered, relieved to hear from his closest friend. Marcus, things are heating up. Elijah's voice sounded tense. People in town are starting to talk, questioning the board's decision. Folks are upset. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about integrity. Marcus sighed deeply, leaning against the kitchen counter. Integrity doesn't always win against power, Eli. Maybe not easily, Elijah countered strongly. But people respect you, they trust you, your players love you. This town might just rally around you if you fight. Marcus rubbed his temples, frustration evident. Fight how, exactly? Brian Ellis has money, influence. He practically owns Lincoln High. How am I supposed to beat that? Elijah hesitated briefly before continuing cautiously. What if we got the media involved? Expose the real reasons behind your dismissal? Public pressure can be powerful. Marcus considered Elijah's proposal silently, weighing the implications. Maybe, he admitted finally. But it'll get messy, and Ellis won't just sit back quietly. Marcus, this is already messy, Elijah urged passionately. They made it personal the moment they kicked you out. Stand up now, or this won't stop at you. It'll set a precedent that rich donors control everything, even coaching decisions. Marcus took a deep breath, absorbing Elijah's words. You're right. Set up a meeting with Lisa Monroe at the Chesterfield Herald. She's always been fair. Let's talk to her first thing tomorrow. Got it, Elijah responded, clearly relieved. We'll fight this together, Marcus. Meanwhile, at Brian Ellis's sprawling estate, Jackson nervously approached his father's home office. The house was quiet, his parents out attending a fundraiser downtown. Heart pounding, Jackson eased the heavy door open, stepping inside carefully. The room was impressive, filled with dark wood furnishings and shelves lined with expensive-looking books and framed photographs of Brian shaking hands with various influential people. Jackson moved quickly to the desk, hands trembling slightly as he clicked open his father's laptop. He'd seen his father type in passwords countless times and, with a deep breath, tried the first one he remembered. His mother's birth date. Incorrect. Panic rose slightly. He tried again. His own birth date. Incorrect again. He paused, thinking quickly. Brian always preached about winning at all costs. Jackson typed "Winning 2025," hoping desperately. The screen opened immediately, revealing an extensive organized desktop. Jackson scanned quickly through files labeled by year and month, heart pounding. Finally, he saw a folder marked Lincoln High, Marcus Taylor. His pulse quickened as he clicked it open. Inside were emails, audio recordings, and a confidential memo between Brian and Principal Diane Hartman. Jackson opened the audio recording first, his father's voice filling the room clearly. Diane, Marcus is becoming a liability. The attention he gets is unacceptable. Remove him, and you'll see substantial donations for the new sports complex. Fail, and Lincoln High will find my funds directed elsewhere. Jackson felt nausea twist sharply in his stomach. His father's voice was cold, calculating, and explicitly threatening. Quickly, Jackson transferred the files onto a flash drive, heart racing with adrenaline. He closed everything carefully, checking twice to ensure nothing looked suspicious. As he exited, headlights flashed across the driveway. His parents had returned earlier than expected. Jackson hurried silently to his room, locking the door, heart pounding painfully. Moments later, Brian's voice called sharply from downstairs. Jackson? He steadied his voice, responding evenly. Upstairs, just finishing homework. Silence followed briefly before his father's footsteps receded. Jackson exhaled slowly, collapsing onto his bed. He clutched the flash drive tightly, realizing the gravity of his actions. This was more than basketball. He'd directly challenged his father, crossing a line from which there was no return. The next morning, Jamal's phone buzzed early. Jackson's text message was brief yet explosive. "Got the proof. Meet ASAP." Jamal felt a surge of triumph tempered by nervousness. This was just the beginning. Exposing Brian Ellis would undoubtedly ignite fierce backlash. But for Coach Marcus, for their team, and for justice, he was ready. They all were. A heavy rainstorm pelted Chesterfield early Sunday morning, drenching streets and sidewalks, turning lawns into muddy pools. The gloomy skies seemed fitting as Marcus Taylor stepped into the cozy yet bustling warmth of Claire's cafe. Raindrops dripped off his coat, forming tiny puddles on the checkered floor as he moved toward the far corner table where Lisa Monroe from the Chesterfield Herald and Elijah Cooper awaited him anxiously. Lisa, a well-respected investigative reporter known for her fearless pursuit of truth, greeted Marcus warmly. "Marcus, it's good to see you," she said sincerely, her dark brown eyes bright with concern. Marcus slid into the booth, his gaze serious, guarded. "Thanks for meeting us, Lisa." "Of course," Lisa replied, leaning forward, notebook and recorder already placed meticulously on the table. "I've heard rumors, Marcus, but I want the full story directly from you. Tell me everything." Marcus glanced at Elijah, who nodded encouragingly. Drawing a deep breath, Marcus began recounting the events leading to his dismissal. The tense practices, the growing whispers of parental complaints, Principal Diane Hartman's hesitant yet determined request for his resignation, and finally the suspicious involvement of Brian Ellis. Lisa's pen flew rapidly across her notepad, absorbing every detail, occasionally pausing to ask pointed questions, her eyes narrowing with each revelation. When Marcus finished, Lisa leaned back thoughtfully, tapping her pen against her chin. "Marcus, your record speaks for itself. Why would the board risk public backlash to remove their most successful coach? There has to be something bigger." Marcus hesitated briefly, exchanging another glance with Elijah, before continuing carefully. "There is. Brian Ellis's son plays basketball at Riverton Academy, our biggest rival. Ellis's resentment has apparently been festering for years. Removing me wasn't just about my coaching style, it was personal. It was about power, ego, and control." Lisa's expression hardened with determination. "Marcus, accusations against someone as influential as Brian Ellis require proof. Without concrete evidence, the board will deny everything." Marcus nodded solemnly. "We know, but there might be proof. One of my players, Jamal Stevens, has been digging deeper." Lisa raised her eyebrows, intrigued. "If there's actual evidence, we can blow this story wide open. But we need that proof soon, Marcus. Ellis will move quickly to bury anything that threatens him." Across town, Jamal Stevens nervously waited inside Tyler Johnson's living room, eyes locked on the street outside. Rain beat harshly against the window, blurring his view as he anxiously checked his phone for the 100th time. Finally, a sleek gray sedan pulled slowly into the driveway. Jamal jumped to his feet, heart racing. Jackson Ellis hurried through the downpour, his face pale and anxious as Tyler quickly let him in. "Did you bring it?" Jamal asked urgently, wasting no time. Jackson pulled a flash drive from his pocket, hands trembling slightly as he handed it over. "Everything's here. Emails, recordings, documents. Enough to prove my dad orchestrated Coach Marcus's dismissal." Tyler quickly plugged the drive into his laptop. Moments later, Brian Ellis's cold, calculating voice filled the room clearly again. "Diane, Marcus is becoming a liability. The attention he gets is unacceptable. Remove him, and you'll see substantial donations for the new sports complex. Fail, and Lincoln High will find my funds directed elsewhere." Jamal's eyes flashed with anger. "This is exactly what we needed. Marcus was right. Your dad was pulling strings from the start." Jackson's expression darkened with shame and frustration. "I'm sorry, Jamal. I didn't know how bad it was until now. I can't believe my dad did this." Tyler put a comforting hand on Jackson's shoulder. "This isn't your fault, man. You did the right thing by coming forward." Jackson sighed deeply, eyes downcast. "My dad's ruthless. Once he finds out about this, he'll come after all of us." Jamal nodded grimly. "Then we have to move fast. Coach Marcus needs this evidence immediately, and we need to get it to someone who can make it public quickly." Jackson raised his head, suddenly determined. "I know exactly who can help. Lisa Monroe at the Chesterfield Herald. She's exposed corruption before. If anyone can protect us by getting this story out fast, it's her." Tyler and Jamal exchanged determined glances. "Then we meet with her right now," Jamal stated firmly, grabbing his phone. 20 minutes later, Marcus's meeting at Claire's cafe was interrupted as Jamal, Tyler, and Jackson burst into the diner, drenched but energized. "Coach!" Jamal called out urgently, drawing curious stares from nearby patrons. Marcus stood immediately, sensing the urgency. "We've got something you need to see," Tyler said breathlessly, placing the laptop firmly on the table in front of Marcus and Lisa. Without hesitation, Jamal clicked play. Brian Ellis's voice, familiar yet chilling, echoed from the speakers once again. Lisa Monroe leaned closer, eyes widening in shock as she listened intently. When the recording ended, the table fell silent, the heavy implication lingering powerfully. Marcus felt a sharp blend of relief and bitterness. The truth was finally exposed, but at what cost? Lisa regained her composure swiftly, her journalist instincts taking over. "Boys, I need copies of everything. This evidence is explosive, enough to overturn Marcus's dismissal and maybe even expose deeper corruption at Lincoln High." Jackson nodded quickly, handing her the flash drive. "Take it. My dad keeps everything, so there's no denying it." Lisa pocketed the drive carefully, already mentally planning the article. "Marcus, the moment this story publishes, there'll be chaos. Are you ready?" Marcus met her gaze steadily. "I'm ready. But these boys, they'll need protection from backlash. Brian won't go down quietly." Lisa's expression softened with understanding. "We'll protect them. The media spotlight can be a shield. Ellis won't dare retaliate publicly." Marcus turned to Jamal, pride and gratitude evident. "You guys did something incredibly brave today. Thank you." Jamal smiled determinedly. "We're a team, Coach. We learned from the best." Late that evening, as the storm intensified, Brian Ellis sat at his lavish mahogany desk, eyes narrowed angrily at his computer screen. An urgent notification appeared. His private files had been accessed. His jaw clenched furiously. "Jackson," he muttered coldly, realization dawning swiftly. He stormed through the sprawling house, anger burning hotly as he threw open his son's bedroom door. "Where is it, Jackson?" Brian demanded sharply. Jackson stood, tense yet defiant. "It's done, Dad. I gave them everything." Brian stepped closer, voice dangerously low. "You realize what you've done? You've ruined everything. For you, for me, our family." Jackson didn't back down, despite trembling visibly. "No, Dad, you ruined it. You made it personal, tried to destroy Coach Marcus's career out of jealousy. Someone had to stop you." Brian's fists clenched tightly, eyes cold with rage. "You've betrayed me. You betrayed your family for Marcus Taylor?" "No," Jackson countered fiercely. "I did what was right." Brian stepped back, voice icy calm now. "You'll regret this, Jackson." Jackson held his ground, though his heart raced with fear. "Maybe, but at least I can live with myself." As Brian left the room, slamming the door violently behind him, Jackson sank to the floor, overwhelmed by a mixture of relief and dread. He'd done the right thing, but the consequences were only just beginning. Outside, lightning flashed across Chesterfield, illuminating the turmoil that now engulfed the community. The truth about Marcus's dismissal was about to break publicly, igniting a storm far more intense than the rain battering against the windows. Marcus Taylor's fight for justice had officially become a war, and Chesterfield would never be the same. Monday morning broke clear over Chesterfield, the storm from the night before leaving puddles shimmering beneath the pale sunlight. Lincoln High buzzed with anticipation and uncertainty. Rumors about Marcus Taylor's dismissal and Brian Ellis's secretive manipulation had spread rapidly, electrifying the student body and faculty alike. Marcus sat quietly in his apartment, nursing a cup of strong coffee as his phone vibrated continuously with messages of support, concern, and disbelief. He scrolled through each carefully, heartened by the growing chorus of voices demanding answers. His phone buzzed again, this time a call. Marcus paused momentarily when he saw Principal Diane Hartman's number flash on screen. He hesitated briefly, then answered calmly. "Hello, Diane." Diane's voice sounded strained, nervous. "Marcus, I think we need to talk, privately." Marcus exhaled slowly, skepticism evident. "About what exactly? Your decision was quite clear." "Marcus, please," Diane pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "Things are different now. The board is panicking. The recordings of Brian Ellis were sent directly to us this morning. We had no idea his threats were that explicit. Marcus's expression hardened slightly. Really? I find that difficult to believe. Diane sighed deeply. Listen, I admit we knew Brian had strong opinions, but no one on the board was aware of the explicit quid pro quo. Marcus, this is serious. Your dismissal might have violated district policies and maybe even laws. We need you back. Marcus felt a bitter laugh rise, restrained by sheer willpower. So now you want me back? After you threw me out to appease a donor? Marcus, I deserve your anger, Diane responded quietly. But the students don't deserve this chaos. They need you. We need you. Marcus hesitated, wrestling with conflicting emotions. He deeply missed coaching his team, but the betrayal stung sharply. Finally, he spoke cautiously. I'll consider it, Diane, but I have conditions. First, a public apology from you and the board. Second, Brian Ellis's complete removal from any influence over school decisions. No more interference. Diane paused, clearly overwhelmed, yet understanding. I'll do everything I can. Meanwhile, at Lincoln High, Jamal Stevens and Tyler Johnson navigated hallways crowded with students whispering and exchanging glances filled with curiosity and admiration. Overnight, the two had become local heroes among classmates aware of their role in exposing the truth. Tyler felt uneasy under the attention, whispering nervously to Jamal. This feels weird, man. Everyone's staring. Jamal nodded, unfazed outwardly, though inwardly tense. Just stay cool. We did the right thing. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by Principal Hartman's voice crackling over the intercom. Attention students and faculty, please assemble in the auditorium immediately for an important announcement. The hallway erupted with murmurs as the entire school began moving swiftly toward the auditorium. Jamal's pulse quickened. Something big was unfolding. The auditorium filled rapidly, the usual hum of student chatter subdued by a palpable sense of expectation. Jamal and Tyler found seats near the front, watching intently as Diane Hartman stepped nervously onto the stage. Her eyes scanned the crowd, briefly meeting Jamal's gaze, her expression acknowledging the gravity of the moment. She took a deep breath, steadying herself before speaking into the microphone, her voice amplified across the silent auditorium. Good morning, everyone. By now, most of you are aware of Coach Marcus Taylor's dismissal. I stand here today to clarify several important details surrounding that decision and to publicly address recent revelations. She paused, visibly uncomfortable, before continuing with greater resolve. Recently uncovered evidence proves that Coach Taylor's dismissal was influenced improperly. Specifically, influential donor Brian Ellis exerted undue pressure upon the school board and upon myself, using threats of financial consequences to secure Coach Taylor's removal. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the auditorium. Diane raised her hand gently, quieting the crowd before continuing. On behalf of myself and the entire Lincoln High School administration, I publicly apologize to Coach Marcus Taylor, his team, and all students. Our actions were wrong, misguided, and deeply unfair. Today, we officially invite Coach Taylor back, should he choose to return. Jamal felt an enormous sense of relief and pride surge through him, exchanging triumphant glances with Tyler. Applause erupted spontaneously, students rising from their seats, cheering enthusiastically. Yet Diane Hartman raised her voice again, quickly quieting the applause. Her next words carried an ominous tone. However, this situation is not yet resolved. The district attorney's office is opening a formal investigation into Brian Ellis's actions. During this time, I urge caution and unity among our school community. As the assembly dispersed, Jamal and Tyler were approached by classmates showering them with questions, admiration, and congratulations. But their celebration was abruptly interrupted as Jamal's phone vibrated urgently. The message was from Jackson Ellis. My dad found out about the evidence. He's furious. Be careful. He'll come after everyone involved. Jamal's blood ran cold. Tyler, noticing Jamal's sudden tension, leaned closer. What's wrong? Jamal quickly showed Tyler the message. Tyler's eyes widened nervously. Do you think Brian Ellis would really do something? Jamal exhaled deeply. After everything we've learned? Absolutely. Across town, Brian Ellis sat silently in his expansive office, blinds drawn tightly, blocking out the brightening sky. He stared darkly at his computer screen, which displayed breaking news headlines from the Chesterfield Herald. Local scandal rocks Lincoln High. Influential donor exposed in illegal pressure campaign. Brian clenched his fists tightly, rage burning through his chest. He'd underestimated Marcus Taylor, underestimated his own son's betrayal, and now faced public humiliation, potential criminal charges, and loss of influence. His attorney's voice crackled anxiously over the speakerphone. Brian, you need to prepare yourself. The district attorney is already contacting witnesses. This isn't just about your reputation anymore. You're facing serious legal trouble. Brian's jaw tightened stubbornly. Make it go away. Find weaknesses. Everyone has vulnerabilities, even Marcus Taylor. Brian, his attorney warned cautiously. Retaliation right now could escalate charges. Lay low, cooperate. It's your best option. Brian leaned closer to the speaker, voice icy. My entire life I've won by controlling outcomes. I won't let Marcus Taylor destroy what I've built. He disconnected abruptly, sitting back with a calculating glare. His gaze settled ominously on a framed family photo, Jackson smiling innocently. A cold realization crystallized in his mind. To regain control, he'd need leverage. He knew exactly where to find it. That evening, Marcus received a late call from Jackson, voice panicked and trembling. Coach Marcus, my dad's missing. I think he's going after Jamal. Marcus's pulse raced instantly, alarmed. Jackson, slow down. What do you mean? Jackson breathed heavily, frantic. He's furious, Coach. Said he'd do whatever it takes. I think Jamal and Tyler are in danger. Marcus's thoughts raced swiftly. Stay calm. Call Jamal immediately. Tell him to stay put. I'm coming. Marcus hung up sharply, grabbing his keys, heart pounding anxiously. He'd hoped exposing Ellis would bring justice, but now it seemed the fight had taken an even darker turn. As Marcus sped through Chesterfield's quiet streets, unease settled deeply within him. Brian Ellis's desperation had grown dangerous, threatening not just careers, but lives. Marcus knew clearly now. The battle for truth had plunged them all straight into the fire. The worst was yet to come. Marcus Taylor sped down the rain-slicked streets of Chesterfield, headlights piercing the misty darkness. Anxiety tightened his grip on the steering wheel as Jackson's frantic warning echoed in his ears. My dad's missing. I think he's going after Jamal. Marcus knew Brian Ellis was capable of ruthless measures, but until this moment, he had refused to believe Ellis would cross such dangerous lines. Now, uncertainty gnawed relentlessly at his mind. He pulled sharply into Jamal Stevens' neighborhood, an older part of town where modest homes lined the streets, illuminated by dim porch lights. Marcus parked quickly, stepping into the cold night, senses alert, scanning for anything out of place. The neighborhood appeared quiet, but an unsettling tension lingered, thickening the air around him. Marcus knocked rapidly on Jamal's front door. Moments later, Jamal opened it cautiously, visibly relieved to see his coach standing in the dim light. Coach Marcus, Jamal whispered urgently, ushering him inside quickly. I just got Jackson's message. Is he serious about his dad? Marcus nodded grimly. Jackson wouldn't panic unless it was real. Has anything unusual happened here tonight? Jamal hesitated, glancing nervously toward the window. There was a black SUV parked down the street earlier. I thought I was paranoid, but now... Marcus's eyes sharpened instantly. Where did it go? Jamal shrugged helplessly. I didn't see. It drove off maybe 10 minutes ago. Marcus moved swiftly toward the window, peering carefully outside. Shadows cast by streetlights danced ominously on the pavement, but nothing seemed immediately threatening. Yet his instincts screamed danger. Grab a jacket, Jamal. You're staying with me tonight. It's safer if we're together. Jamal nodded quickly, throwing on his coat. As they stepped outside, Marcus's phone buzzed sharply. He quickly glanced down. Tyler Johnson calling. Marcus answered immediately, pulse quickening again at Tyler's panicked tone. Coach Marcus, someone just broke into my house. Tyler whispered frantically. My mom called the police, but I'm hiding in my room. Marcus clenched his teeth tightly, anger and fear surging simultaneously. Stay calm, Tyler. Lock your door and stay quiet. We'll be there as fast as we can. Marcus and Jamal raced to Marcus's car, tires screeching against wet pavement as they rushed toward Tyler's house. Jamal sat rigid in the passenger seat, breathing heavily. This is crazy, Jamal muttered anxiously. Why would Brian Ellis go this far? Marcus shook his head grimly, eyes fixed ahead. Because he's desperate. We underestimated him. Men like Ellis lose control, and they become dangerous. At Tyler's house, red and blue lights flashed brightly, cutting through the darkness as 2 Chesterfield police cruisers sat parked outside. Marcus quickly approached an officer standing watch at the front porch. I'm Marcus Taylor, Tyler's coach, he stated firmly. What happened? The officer nodded sharply, recognizing him immediately. Attempted break-in. Suspect fled when we arrived. Tyler and his mother are safe inside. They're shaken, but unharmed. Relief surged through Marcus, though dread still lingered. Did anyone identify the intruder? The officer hesitated slightly. Tyler described seeing a middle-aged white male, well-dressed. Matches Brian Ellis's description. We'll investigate thoroughly, Coach. Ellis is now officially a suspect. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and grim determination. At least Ellis's actions were now openly criminal, easier to prosecute. But he worried how far Ellis would go before being caught. Tyler emerged from the house moments later, visibly shaken. He rushed toward Marcus and Jamal, voice trembling slightly. "Coach Marcus, Jamal, I'm so glad you guys came. I thought—" Marcus placed a reassuring hand on Tyler's shoulder. "You're safe now. We'll figure this out together." The next morning, Chesterfield awoke to explosive headlines. The local media had fully caught wind of the dramatic overnight events. Lisa Munro's article in the Chesterfield Herald declared boldly, "Community on edge. Brian Ellis suspected in break-ins targeting Lincoln High students." The story detailed Ellis's earlier manipulations at Lincoln High, including the recordings Jackson had courageously shared. Public opinion rapidly shifted from shock to outrage, with demands for Ellis's immediate arrest filling social media and news channels. Brian Ellis, however, remained elusive, avoiding capture and sparking heightened fears. Police patrols intensified, and the school district hastily implemented extra security measures at Lincoln High. In the principal's office, Diane Hartman sat silently, her normally composed expression strained with guilt and worry. Marcus entered cautiously, pausing to observe her quietly before speaking. "You asked to see me?" Diane nodded, avoiding his gaze momentarily. "Marcus, I feel responsible for this. I allowed Ellis's threats to influence my decisions. Now he's endangered students. I don't know how to make amends." Marcus sighed deeply, his voice firm yet understanding. "You can't change the past, Diane, but you can help fix this now. Support the students openly, cooperate fully with investigators, and ensure Ellis's influence is permanently ended." She nodded resolutely, finally meeting his eyes with determination. "I will. I promise." That afternoon, Marcus gathered his team in the gymnasium, a solemn yet crucial moment. Players exchanged nervous glances, the atmosphere heavy with uncertainty. Marcus stepped forward, facing his players squarely. "Guys, I know this situation has been terrifying," Marcus began calmly. "But I promise we'll get through it together. Brian Ellis is being hunted down by authorities. For now, we have to stay united and focused." Jamal raised his hand firmly. "Coach, how can we focus when our own classmates were attacked?" Marcus paused thoughtfully, nodding slowly. "Fair question. We can't ignore reality. But Ellis wants to intimidate us, distract us from what we've built here. He's angry because we exposed his corruption. If we stop now, he wins." Tyler stood abruptly, his voice steady despite lingering anxiety. "Coach is right. We fought hard to expose the truth. Now it's even more important we keep fighting." Other teammates nodded, galvanized by Tyler's courage. Marcus felt immense pride watching their resilience. Later that evening, at his isolated lakeside cabin, Brian Ellis paced furiously, television news playing incessantly in the background, repeatedly declaring his guilt in criminal activity. His phone buzzed incessantly with texts and calls he angrily ignored. He'd planned meticulously, built influence, accumulated power, manipulated the community, but now it crumbled swiftly beneath his feet. His attorney's latest message flashed urgently. "Brian, authorities are preparing formal charges. You need to surrender voluntarily." Brian sneered bitterly. Surrender meant defeat, an admission of weakness. Marcus Taylor, his players, and even his own son had ruined everything. A dangerous resolve crystallized coldly in Ellis's mind. If he would fall, he'd ensure others fell harder. He reached deliberately into his desk drawer, removing a small handgun, carefully loading bullets one by one. His gaze turned darkly toward a photograph pinned angrily to the wall. Marcus Taylor surrounded proudly by his team. Ellis felt satisfaction mingled with ruthless determination. If Marcus thought he'd won, Ellis would ensure he paid dearly. Chesterfield had turned against him, branding him a villain. He'd play that role fully now, consequences irrelevant. Marcus Taylor would soon discover exactly what he'd unleashed. Across town, Marcus sat alone in his quiet apartment, unable to shake the lingering unease deep within him. A storm brewed again, dark clouds looming heavily over Chesterfield, symbolic of tensions still unresolved. Ellis remained dangerously free, his desperation mounting to frightening extremes. Marcus knew clearly now. Victory in exposing Ellis had come at severe cost, plunging them all deeper into darkness. The path ahead would only grow more treacherous before any peace was regained, and he worried greatly that not everyone would survive to see the end. The storm clouds over Chesterfield grew darker, thickening until daylight seemed swallowed whole. By early evening, a violent downpour lashed the town once again, mirroring the community's tense, fearful mood. People hurried indoors, locking doors securely against dangers real and imagined, as news spread rapidly of Brian Ellis's intensifying pursuit. Marcus Taylor sat restlessly in his living room, eyes fixed on the relentless rain battering against his window. The constant rhythm intensified his unease, each drop a stinging reminder of Ellis's volatile desperation. Marcus knew Ellis wouldn't quietly disappear. He'd strike again, harder and more recklessly, his fury building dangerously with each passing hour. A sudden sharp knock at Marcus's door jolted him from anxious thoughts. He stood instantly, cautious, nerves tightening as he approached slowly, opening it carefully. Jackson Ellis stood in the doorway, soaked from the downpour, shivering and pale. Marcus's eyes softened immediately with concern, ushering him inside quickly. "Jackson, are you all right?" Marcus asked gently, grabbing a towel from the hallway closet and handing it to him. Jackson took the towel gratefully, drying his face, struggling visibly to control his breathing. His voice trembled slightly. "Coach Marcus, I didn't know where else to go. I think my dad's going to do something terrible tonight." Marcus's expression hardened, though he kept his voice calm, steadying Jackson. "Slow down. Tell me exactly what happened." Jackson swallowed hard, sinking heavily onto the couch, eyes haunted. "Dad called me. He was furious, Coach. He said if I didn't come home, he'd handle things himself. He mentioned your name specifically. It wasn't just anger. It sounded like a threat." Marcus's pulse quickened sharply, dread twisting inside him. "Did he say anything about Jamal or Tyler?" Jackson shook his head uncertainly. "No, but Coach, the way he talked, he's dangerous. I've never heard him like this. He blames you completely. Said you ruined everything he built." Marcus exhaled deeply, understanding fully the severity. "All right. You're staying here tonight, Jackson. You're safe with me." Jackson nodded silently, visibly relieved, though anxiety lingered heavily in his eyes. Across Chesterfield, Jamal Stevens paced nervously in his room, occasionally glancing outside, paranoia increasing with each passing moment. The heavy storm magnified his apprehension, the shadows playing tricks on his vision, twisting branches and rain into sinister forms. His phone buzzed suddenly. Tyler Johnson calling urgently. Jamal answered immediately, voice tense. "Tyler?" Tyler's voice shook slightly with urgency. "Jamal, someone just sent me a text from an unknown number. Said they're watching us both, that Coach Marcus won't protect us forever." Jamal's breath quickened sharply. "Did you call the police?" "Yeah, but they said they're stretched thin trying to find Ellis. They can't guarantee protection unless there's direct evidence of a threat." Jamal cursed softly under his breath, frustration evident. "Stay inside. Lock your doors, turn off your lights. I'll call Coach Marcus right now." As he hung up, another message buzzed onto Jamal's screen from the same unknown number. "Come alone to the basketball court tonight at midnight. If you don't, Tyler's next." Jamal's heart raced uncontrollably, fear slicing through him sharply. Ellis had finally made a direct threat, forcing Jamal into a terrifying decision. Quickly dialing Marcus, his voice trembled slightly when Marcus answered. "Coach, Ellis contacted me. He wants me alone at the basketball court tonight. Threatened Tyler if I don't show." Marcus's voice hardened immediately. "Jamal, listen closely. Do not go. Ellis is baiting you." "But Coach, if I don't—" "I'll handle this," Marcus interrupted firmly. "Stay put. I'm calling the police and heading there myself. Promise me you won't leave your house." Jamal hesitated briefly, uncertainty gnawing at him. Yet Marcus's steady voice reassured him enough to relent. "All right, Coach. I promise." As midnight approached, Marcus arrived at the rain-soaked outdoor basketball court, where he'd spent countless hours coaching his team. The place seemed different tonight, sinister shadows cast by dim streetlights flickering in the storm. The familiar asphalt was slick and glistening, reflecting the distorted light, amplifying the ominous atmosphere. Marcus waited silently beneath a small shelter, eyes scanning constantly through the pounding rain. Police cars idled discreetly down the block, their lights off but ready to act quickly at Marcus's signal. Time dragged painfully slow. Marcus checked his watch repeatedly, tension increasing steadily as midnight neared. The storm intensified, lightning flashing violently across the sky, illuminating the scene in stark, surreal bursts. At precisely midnight, headlights pierced the darkness. A sleek black SUV slowly pulled into view, parking deliberately at the far edge of the court. Marcus tensed sharply, eyes fixed intensely on the figure emerging slowly from the vehicle. Brian Ellis stepped confidently onto the court, his expensive coat soaked instantly, eyes cold and hard, fixated directly on Marcus. Ellis's hands were visible, empty, but Marcus sensed immediate danger. "Marcus Taylor!" Ellis called loudly, his voice calm yet edged with chilling anger. "I should have known you'd come instead of Jamal. Always playing the hero." Marcus stepped forward cautiously, the rain soaking him instantly. "This ends here, Brian. You've terrorized innocent kids long enough. Turn yourself in peacefully. Don't make things worse." Ellis laughed bitterly, stepping closer, his voice lowering dangerously. "Peacefully? You destroyed my family, turned my own son against me, humiliated me publicly, and you want peace." Marcus met Ellis's glare evenly, voice steady. "You did that yourself, Brian. Your obsession with power caused all this. Admit your mistakes, face your consequences, and spare your family further pain." Ellis's eyes narrowed furiously, rage building visibly beneath his controlled exterior. "Consequences? You think you can lecture me about consequences?" Ellis suddenly drew a handgun, his arm trembling slightly from rage and adrenaline. Marcus froze momentarily, adrenaline surging through him as police instantly flashed their lights, sirens erupting loudly, converging quickly toward them. "Put the gun down, Ellis!" An officer shouted urgently through a megaphone. Ellis, cornered yet refusing defeat, raised the gun directly toward Marcus. "If I'm finished, Marcus, so are you." Marcus's pulse raced furiously, every instinct screaming danger, but he held Ellis's gaze defiantly. "Shooting me won't change what you've done, Brian." Ellis's finger tightened dangerously on the trigger, hesitation flickering briefly in his eyes as lightning flashed violently above. In that critical moment, Marcus saw clearly the desperation and despair beneath Ellis's rage. Suddenly, another figure appeared, running frantically across the court. Jackson Ellis, soaked, screaming desperately, voice anguished, pleading, "Dad, stop!" Brian turned sharply toward his son, momentarily distracted, his face stricken with shock. Jackson stopped a short distance away, hands raised pleadingly. "Dad, don't do this," Jackson implored desperately, eyes wide, tears mixing with rain. "Please, it's over." Brian hesitated briefly, the gun trembling in his hand, emotions violently conflicting on his face. Marcus moved cautiously toward Jackson, protective instinct powerful yet cautious of triggering Ellis's rage further. "Listen to him, Brian," Marcus urged steadily, calmly, sensing Ellis wavering. "Don't make Jackson witness this." Brian's eyes filled suddenly with profound sadness, defeat overcoming him visibly, voice cracking slightly. "Jackson, I'm sorry. I never meant for you to." Suddenly, Ellis turned the gun toward himself, hands shaking uncontrollably. Jackson screamed desperately, Marcus lunging instantly forward, instinctively trying to prevent tragedy unfolding. "Dad, no!" Jackson's anguished cry echoed as Marcus reached desperately, the world seeming to move in terrifying slow motion. A shot rang sharply through the stormy night, echoing hauntingly across Chesterfield, leaving everything frighteningly silent in its aftermath. In that terrible moment, Marcus realized the battle for justice had spiraled tragically beyond control. Brian Ellis's desperation had ended violently, tragically, and Chesterfield would never be the same again. The echo of the gunshot reverberated through Marcus Taylor's consciousness long after the sound faded into the relentless downpour. Time seemed suspended, reality frozen in a cruel snapshot of tragedy. Marcus stood motionless, his heart pounding painfully in his chest. Eyes locked on Brian Ellis's fallen figure lying motionless on the rain-soaked asphalt of the basketball court. Jackson Ellis's anguished screams shattered the eerie stillness that followed. The young man sank heavily to his knees beside his father's body, hands trembling violently as he reached desperately toward him, grief and disbelief etched into every line of his pale face. "Dad, please." Jackson's voice broke painfully, his pleading drowned by the relentless storm. Marcus moved instinctively, quickly crouching beside Jackson, gently yet firmly pulling him away from the horrific sight. Jackson resisted briefly, eyes wide with shock, but Marcus held him tightly, shielding him protectively as police officers rushed forward, radios crackling urgently. Paramedics arrived swiftly, their flashing emergency lights casting harsh, surreal illumination across the grim scene. Marcus guided Jackson carefully toward an ambulance, helping him sit down, placing a comforting hand on his trembling shoulder. "Jackson," Marcus spoke gently, his voice steady despite the trauma. "Stay here. Let them help you." Jackson stared blankly forward, numb with shock, barely registering Marcus's words. Marcus stepped aside, allowing medical personnel to tend to Jackson, turning his gaze back toward the scene where officers worked swiftly, cordoning off the area with caution tape. The entire court was lit by a web of emergency lights, reflections shimmering chaotically in puddles as rain continued pouring relentlessly, oblivious to human tragedy. Detective Lucas McNeil, a veteran investigator respected throughout Chesterfield, approached Marcus carefully, his expression somber and sympathetic. "Marcus, we'll need your statement about exactly what happened. Are you all right?" Marcus exhaled deeply, voice heavy with exhaustion and sorrow. "Physically, yes. But Detective, this didn't need to happen." Detective McNeil nodded grimly, sighing deeply. "Brian Ellis's actions brought us here. It's tragic, no question. But without you intervening, tonight could have ended far worse." Marcus rubbed his face tiredly, emotions swirling painfully inside him. "Maybe. But Jackson witnessed his father's suicide. How does he ever heal from that?" McNeil placed a comforting hand on Marcus's shoulder. "He'll need help. Professional support, emotional support. And from everything I know about you, Marcus, you'll make sure he gets it." Marcus nodded resolutely, steeling himself. "Absolutely. He's not alone." The following morning, Chesterfield awoke to stunning, heartbreaking headlines dominating every local news outlet. Tragedy at Chesterfield Court. Influential booster Brian Ellis. Dead in apparent suicide. Community in shock. Shockwaves rippled swiftly throughout town, sparking disbelief, sorrow, anger, and a collective sense of loss, even amid acknowledgement of Ellis's wrongdoings. Lincoln High canceled classes temporarily, opening the school gymnasium as a community counseling center to support grieving students, families, and teachers. Marcus arrived at the school early, quietly observing as community members gathered. Tearful students hugging each other, parents anxiously comforting children, faculty members struggling to maintain composure while offering solace. Inside the gymnasium, Jamal Stevens and Tyler Johnson sat quietly among teammates, visibly shaken, voices subdued, struggling to process the events. Marcus approached softly, drawing their attention gently. "You boys holding up okay?" Marcus asked carefully, sitting down beside them, concern evident. Jamal sighed deeply, voice strained. "Coach, it just feels surreal. Ellis tried to hurt us, threatened us, but I didn't want him dead. Nobody deserved this." Tyler nodded quietly, adding softly, "And Jackson, what happens to him now?" "He lost everything, Coach." Marcus squeezed Tyler's shoulder reassuringly. "Jackson won't go through this alone. None of us will. We'll be there for each other." Jamal looked up sharply, sudden determination in his eyes. "Coach, the state championship finals, they're next week. Everyone's saying we should withdraw. That playing after this tragedy is inappropriate." Marcus paused thoughtfully, meeting Jamal's intense gaze directly. "What do you think?" Jamal's voice hardened resolutely. "I think we should play, Coach. We should dedicate it to everyone who suffered through this. To Jackson, Tyler, our school, everyone who's hurting. We should play to honor them." Marcus felt pride swelling strongly within him, seeing clearly the resilience that defined these young men. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." 2 days later, Brian Ellis's funeral took place at Chesterfield's largest church, drawing hundreds of mourners. Marcus attended quietly, sitting discreetly near the back. He noticed Jackson seated rigidly beside his mother in the front pew, his posture stiff, gaze fixed blankly ahead, clearly overwhelmed. Marcus approached Jackson cautiously afterward, voice gentle. "Jackson, how are you holding up?" Jackson's eyes filled suddenly with tears, his voice trembling painfully. "I don't know how I'm supposed to feel, Coach. Dad hurt so many people, but he was still my father." Marcus gently placed a comforting hand on Jackson's shoulder. "You don't need to know how to feel right now, Jackson. It's okay to be confused, hurt, angry, or sad. You take all the time you need." Jackson looked up hesitantly, eyes pleading desperately. "Coach, I can't face everyone at Riverton Academy now. They'll blame me. My family's ruined." Marcus shook his head firmly, voice resolute. Your family isn't ruined, Jackson. You still have your mom, and you have us, me, Jamal, Tyler, the team. We're all your family now. If Riverton Academy becomes unbearable, Lincoln High's doors are wide open. You belong with us. Jackson's expression softened visibly, relief mingling with fresh tears. You'd really want me? Marcus nodded without hesitation. Absolutely. Always. As Chesterfield slowly absorbed the painful aftermath, Marcus struggled internally, wrestling with his own sense of responsibility. Though the tragedy was Ellis's making, Marcus wondered endlessly if he could have prevented it, if another outcome had been possible. One evening, he sat alone on the bleachers inside Lincoln High's now empty gymnasium, staring quietly at the banners proudly commemorating past championships. A gentle knock interrupted his reflection, Elijah Cooper stepping inside quietly, concern evident on his face. Marcus, you okay? Elijah asked softly, joining him on the bleachers. Marcus exhaled heavily, eyes thoughtful. Honestly, Eli, I don't know. I feel responsible somehow, like I triggered everything. Elijah shook his head firmly, voice comforting yet strong. Marcus, you didn't cause Ellis's downfall. His own choices led there. You fought for your players, exposed corruption, stood by your principles. That took courage and strength, not blame. Marcus sighed deeply, absorbing Elijah's words carefully. Maybe. But how do I move past this? How do we move past this tragedy as a community? Elijah placed a reassuring hand on Marcus's shoulder. By staying together. By supporting each other openly, honestly, compassionately. Chesterfield's healing will come, but only if leaders like you help guide us through it. Marcus nodded resolutely, determination replacing despair. You're right. I owe it to these kids, to Jackson, Jamal, Tyler, to everyone who stood strong. They deserve a future defined by hope, not tragedy. Elijah smiled warmly, squeezing Marcus's shoulder reassuringly. Then let's start shaping that future now. Marcus stood, eyes firm with renewed purpose, heart steadily healing despite lingering pain. Tragedy had shaken Chesterfield profoundly, but Marcus recognized clearly now. Their response defined their path forward. United, resilient, compassionate, they could rebuild hope from ashes. Chesterfield was wounded deeply, but far from broken. Marcus Taylor would ensure it stayed that way. The days following Brian Ellis's funeral blurred into one long, exhausting period of grief and healing for Chesterfield. The community was still reeling, shaken by the tragedy's sheer magnitude, but slowly, quietly, resilience began to take root. Marcus Taylor stood at the heart of it, his calm presence anchoring those around him as they navigated through uncertainty toward recovery. Lincoln High School gradually returned to normal routines, though normal felt profoundly different now, marked permanently by loss and tempered by newfound strength. Marcus resumed his coaching duties, yet each practice carried a heightened sense of purpose, each drill more meaningful than ever before. One afternoon, Marcus observed silently from the sidelines as his players ran through drills with focused determination. Jamal Stevens, Tyler Johnson, and now Jackson Ellis moved seamlessly together, their bond deepened significantly by shared trauma. Marcus noted with quiet pride how naturally Jackson had integrated into the team, his skills evident, his spirit renewed. Good job, Jackson, Jamal encouraged warmly as Jackson landed an impressive three-point shot. Jackson smiled slightly, visibly relieved by his teammates' open acceptance, a critical step forward in his personal recovery. After practice ended, Marcus gathered the team in a circle at center court. His voice carried quiet strength, capturing every player's attention. Gentlemen, we've been through something incredibly difficult, but every day you show up, you choose courage over fear, unity over division, compassion over bitterness. We honor what we've lost by how we move forward, together. Jamal nodded strongly, raising his voice firmly. We'll make Chesterfield proud, Coach. For everyone who supported us, and especially for Jackson. We've got his back. Jackson looked down briefly, emotions threatening to overwhelm him. He raised his eyes slowly, determination clearly visible. Thank you. I don't know how to repay you all, but I'll never forget this. Tyler clapped Jackson on the shoulder firmly. Family doesn't keep score, man. You're one of us now. Marcus felt pride swell deeply, witnessing genuine brotherhood emerging from painful adversity. With the state championship finals just days away, Chesterfield rallied noticeably behind Lincoln High's basketball team, the community finding solace and unity in their improbable journey. School hallways buzzed with excited anticipation, banners and signs supporting the team appearing across town, storefronts displaying messages of encouragement. Yet beneath excitement lingered cautious apprehension. Many wondered quietly if the team's emotional scars were too fresh, too raw, threatening to overshadow their performance. Lisa Monroe, journalist for the Chesterfield Herald, visited Marcus at practice late one afternoon, her keen eyes observing closely. "Marcus," she began gently afterward, "with everything these kids have endured, do you genuinely believe they're ready emotionally to compete at such a high level?" Marcus nodded calmly, voice steady and assured. "Absolutely, Lisa. These boys aren't playing just for trophies or banners. They're playing to reclaim their sense of self, their dignity, and this community's trust. That makes them stronger than ever." Lisa smiled warmly, impressed by Marcus's unwavering confidence. "Then Chesterfield is behind you completely. Win or lose, this team has already triumphed." The evening before the championship game, Marcus quietly invited the team to his apartment. They crowded into this modest space, gathering comfortably, anticipation thick yet oddly comforting. Marcus stood calmly before them, voice gentle yet deeply resonant. "Tomorrow's game will define us, not because of the score, but by our character on and off that court. Remember everything you've overcome. Remember how you've stood together. Remember who you're fighting for." Jackson spoke quietly, eyes sincere. "Coach, we're fighting for you too. None of this would have happened without you." Marcus felt emotion tighten briefly in his chest, nodding humbly. "Thank you. But this journey has never been just about me. It's about each of you. Tomorrow, give your absolute best. Leave everything out there, and whatever happens, hold your heads high." The players nodded silently, determination clearly etched in their expressions. Game day dawned clear and bright, an almost symbolic contrast to recent darkness. Chesterfield's gymnasium overflowed, the stands packed to capacity with residents eager to support their hometown heroes. Marcus felt tension twist briefly inside him, yet calmed himself, projecting confidence outwardly to steady his team. The opposing team, defending champions Riverton Academy, entered with swagger, their reputation formidable. Marcus noted Jackson's subtle tension, understanding fully the weight of facing former teammates amid deeply personal turmoil. Tip-off signaled the game's frantic, intense pace instantly. Riverton's early lead tested Lincoln High's resilience, yet Marcus observed with pride how quickly his team steadied themselves, methodically closing the gap with disciplined execution. Jamal displayed exceptional leadership, his confident play galvanizing teammates, lifting morale dramatically. Tyler's defensive prowess frustrated Riverton repeatedly, while Jackson quietly impressed, scoring critical points that silenced former teammates' mocking jeers swiftly. The game's tension built steadily, score seesawing relentlessly into the fourth quarter, energy palpable within the gymnasium. Marcus carefully managed substitutions, encouraging calmly, reinforcing focus rather than pressuring. In the game's final minute, Lincoln High narrowly trailed Riverton. Jamal gathered his team quickly, voice steady despite exhaustion. "We've got this. One final push. For Coach Marcus, for Jackson, for Chesterfield." Marcus watched intently from the sideline, his heart pounding anxiously as Lincoln High regained possession with mere seconds remaining. Jamal swiftly drove down court, defense tightening intensely around him. Instinctively, Jamal passed sharply to Jackson, unguarded briefly at the perimeter. Jackson hesitated fractionally, nerves threatening his composure momentarily. Then, remembering his teammates' trust, Marcus's unwavering belief, Jackson rose confidently, releasing smoothly just as the buzzer sounded deafeningly. The entire gymnasium seemed suspended breathlessly as the ball arced perfectly through the air, swishing cleanly through the net. Lincoln High erupted instantly, ecstatic cheers shaking the walls, players embracing joyously, tears mingling with sweat and exhaustion. Marcus smiled broadly, pride overwhelming him momentarily, eyes dampened briefly by profound emotion. As players celebrated triumphantly afterward, Chesterfield residents flooded onto the court, joyfully congratulating players, expressions alight with renewed community pride. Marcus stood quietly aside, observing warmly, when Principal Diane Hartman approached respectfully, eyes sincere. "Marcus, this victory symbolizes far more than basketball. It represents courage, unity, resilience, everything you've instilled here. Lincoln High is forever changed because of you." Marcus nodded appreciatively. "Thank you, Diane. But these young men, they deserve credit. Their strength lifted all of us." Diane smiled warmly. "True, but you guided them brilliantly." Late that evening, Marcus finally sat alone inside his quiet apartment, exhausted yet profoundly fulfilled. His phone buzzed gently, A message appearing from Jackson Ellis. Coach Marcus, thank you for believing in me, for giving me a second chance. Tonight was because of you. Forever grateful. Marcus exhaled deeply, warmth filling his chest, typing a simple yet heartfelt reply. Proud of you always, Jackson. Family forever. Marcus leaned back quietly afterward, reflecting deeply. The journey had been extraordinarily difficult, marked by tragedy, grief, betrayal, and loss, yet also illuminated by compassion, resilience, and ultimately redemption. Lincoln High's championship victory signaled more than athletic triumph. It symbolized Chesterfield's remarkable capacity to heal, rebuild, and emerge stronger together, united by profound humanity revealed through adversity. Marcus realized clearly. The journey had shaped them profoundly, leaving scars undoubtedly, yet also inspiring deep resilience. Chesterfield stood changed, but undeniably stronger. Marcus Taylor's heart finally felt truly at peace. Through storms endured, darkness confronted, Chesterfield had risen courageously, triumphantly, from ashes reborn. Now he could finally breathe again. The weeks following Lincoln High's dramatic championship victory brought profound transformation to Chesterfield. Slowly, cautiously, a sense of normalcy returned. Yet the town carried the weight of memories that had irrevocably reshaped its identity. Marcus Taylor remained at the center of the community's recovery, not only as a beloved coach, but as an unwavering symbol of resilience and integrity. Marcus reflected deeply as he walked the halls of Lincoln High one quiet afternoon, empty classrooms echoing gently with memories. The basketball trophies, team photographs, and newspaper clippings displayed prominently along the hallway walls now represented more than mere athletic accomplishments. They embodied a deeper story of unity, courage, tragedy, and redemption. Approaching the gymnasium, Marcus paused, hearing familiar voices. Quietly stepping inside, he smiled warmly at the sight before him. Jamal Stevens, Tyler Johnson, and Jackson Ellis were gathered informally, practicing casually, their laughter echoing softly against polished hardwood floors. The camaraderie evident among them stirred deep pride within Marcus. Jackson noticed Marcus first, greeting him warmly. Hey, Coach. Didn't expect to see you today. Marcus smiled gently. Couldn't stay away. Seeing you boys out here is exactly the healing this place needed. Jamal approached earnestly, eyes sincere. Coach Marcus, we've been talking. We want to start something meaningful in Brian Ellis's name. A foundation or scholarship to help kids who struggle, who might not have the opportunities we did. We think it's important to create something positive from all this. Marcus felt profound respect and emotion rise strongly inside him. Boys, that's a powerful idea, transforming tragedy into opportunity and hope. That's exactly the legacy worth building. Tyler nodded strongly. We hoped you'd feel that way. It feels like something Ellis himself would have wanted, deep down, beyond everything. Jackson spoke quietly, voice solemn. I agree. My dad made terrible mistakes, but I believe part of him genuinely wanted the best for Chesterfield. Maybe this can help rebuild trust. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on Jackson's shoulder. Jackson, your strength and maturity amaze me. Your father's legacy won't define your future. You've already chosen a path built on compassion, humility, and courage. Jackson smiled slightly, visibly comforted by Marcus's words. Within weeks, the Brian Ellis Memorial Scholarship Foundation launched officially at a community event hosted at Lincoln High's auditorium, drawing hundreds of Chesterfield residents. Marcus spoke passionately before the gathered crowd, his voice resonating deeply with sincerity and conviction. Today, we're here not to erase tragedy, but to ensure it inspires lasting positive change. Through this foundation, we honor Brian Ellis, not by excusing his mistakes, but by choosing forgiveness over bitterness, unity over division, and hope over despair. Our community has shown extraordinary resilience. Now we channel that strength into something meaningful, compassionate, and enduring. Applause thundered warmly through the auditorium, signaling Chesterfield's enthusiastic support. Lisa Monroe, covering the event for the Chesterfield Herald, later approached Marcus privately, admiration evident in her eyes. Marcus, this scholarship could transform countless lives. Did you ever imagine such profound impact arising from tragedy? Marcus shook his head thoughtfully. Honestly, Lisa, no. But seeing this community choose healing and hope has profoundly humbled me. I'm proud of these kids, proud of Chesterfield. It's powerful proof that compassion truly can heal even the deepest wounds. Lisa nodded sincerely. This town won't forget your role in this healing, Marcus. Your legacy here is profound. Marcus smiled warmly yet humbly. I simply helped guide them. They did the hardest work. Months passed, and as graduation approached, Marcus reflected deeply on each player's growth. Jamal accepted an athletic scholarship at Hampton University, Marcus's own alma mater, carrying forward his leadership and integrity. Tyler chose nearby Virginia State, determined to study criminal justice, inspired deeply by recent events. Jackson, however, chose differently. He decided to stay local, enrolling at Chesterfield Community College to study counseling, driven profoundly by personal trauma and an earnest desire to support others facing emotional challenges. Marcus spoke privately with Jackson afterward, curious yet supportive. "Jackson, are you sure about your choice? With your talent, you had many other opportunities." Jackson nodded resolutely, voice calm yet firm. "Coach Marcus, after everything, I want to dedicate my life to helping people heal. Basketball taught me teamwork and discipline, but you taught me true strength, compassion, and courage. That's the legacy I choose to honor." Marcus felt deep pride swelling profoundly within him, embracing Jackson warmly. "Then you've already succeeded. Your father would have been proud, Jackson, not only of your accomplishments, but your character." 5 years later, Marcus attended a special ceremony honoring Chesterfield community heroes, surprised and humbled to discover he'd been secretly nominated by his former players. Jamal, Tyler, and Jackson each spoke movingly, their heartfelt tributes deeply touching Marcus and those gathered. Jamal, now a respected collegiate player, stood proudly at the podium. "Coach Marcus Taylor isn't just an incredible coach. He's a role model, a mentor, and the strongest person I know. He taught us dignity, courage, resilience, and most importantly, that genuine strength comes from standing together." Tyler, recently appointed as a local police officer, continued passionately. "Without Coach Marcus's bravery and integrity, our community would have fractured irreparably. Instead, we healed, grew stronger, and discovered compassion we didn't know we had." Marcus Taylor's legacy isn't measured by championships, it's measured by lives forever changed. Jackson stepped forward calmly, his presence confident and sincere. "Coach Marcus didn't just help save me personally. He inspired me to live a life dedicated to healing others. Every person I counsel, every student I support, every life I help rebuild, carries a piece of Marcus Taylor's incredible legacy." The ceremony concluded with thunderous applause, Marcus deeply moved and humbled beyond words. Late that evening, Marcus stood quietly outside Lincoln High's gymnasium, reflecting deeply beneath the soft glow of streetlights. Elijah Cooper approached quietly, sensing Marcus's introspection. "You okay, Marcus?" Elijah asked gently, standing beside him. Marcus nodded softly, voice deeply reflective. "Eli, looking back now, I realize clearly the impact we've all had on each other. Chesterfield healed because everyone chose compassion, courage, unity, forgiveness, values stronger than any tragedy. I'm deeply humbled knowing I played even a small part in that." Elijah smiled warmly, voice reassuring yet proud. "Marcus, your humility inspires everyone, but don't underestimate your impact. You showed this community the path forward through genuine leadership and unwavering integrity." Marcus exhaled deeply, thoughtfully. "Maybe, but these young people taught me just as much. Watching Jamal, Tyler, Jackson, all of them become incredible adults. I couldn't be prouder." As Marcus returned home later, stepping quietly into his modest apartment, he paused, noticing an envelope carefully placed beneath his door. Inside was a heartfelt letter, handwritten by Jackson Ellis. "Coach Marcus, 5 years ago, I lost my father but found something equally profound, true family. You taught me strength comes not from power or influence, but from compassion, courage, and humility. I'm forever grateful for your belief, patience, and guidance. Because of you, my life holds purpose, hope, and meaning. Thank you eternally, Coach Marcus, for being the father figure I desperately needed. Your legacy lives in every life you touched, including mine." Marcus sat quietly afterward, heart swelling profoundly with humility and gratitude. Chesterfield's journey had been intensely challenging, marked deeply by tragedy and pain, yet ultimately defined by extraordinary resilience, healing, and hope. Marcus Taylor realized clearly, the legacy built here transcended championships, trophies, or accolades. It was measured profoundly in lives touched, futures inspired, compassion shared, and hope courageously rekindled. That legacy, unbreakable, powerful, lasting, was truly his proudest victory. At last, Marcus Taylor felt deeply at peace. Chesterfield had not merely survived, it had transformed tragedy into powerful, enduring hope. This was more than enough.